Well, hey everybody, it's Jason again with All-Star Welding. PrimeWeld's done it again. On top of their other fantastic machines, they have the TIG welders, the MIG welders, the plasma cutters, the 3-in-1. They have come out with yet another machine that you just got to check out. What this is the Mig160Ts. And basically what they've done is they took the qualities of the Mig160 Flux, which also does MIG, and combined it with the Mig180. And this is a beauty little machine. So we're going to open this up, we're going to check out what comes with it, and we're going to test all the functions. In the description, I'm going to list all the different chapters so that you can skip straight to the part that you're more interested in. But we're going to go through what comes in the box, what the features are, and we're also going to compare it to the Mig160 Flux and the Mig180 because it's kind of like a combination of the two. So along through all of the descriptions, I'm going to talk about the differences between this machine, the Mig160 Flux, and the Mig180. So let's get started. Let's open up the box. I'm not going to go through a box opening routine. I'm just going to cut straight to the chase and show you what comes in the box. Wow, that's a lot to unpack. All of this was in that box. Of course, you got your machine. You got the PrimeWeld Mig160Ts. Okay. You also get the 10-foot long MIG gun. Very nice. You get the stinger for the stick welding. And this is a pretty nice one. It's really hard to open this up. It's good quality. While I'm at it, let me show you the end of it here. That is a DENS 15. Okay, it's the little one, the DENS 15. Keep that in mind. You also get the regulator. On this side, it's argon. On this side, it's the carbon dioxide or your MIG mix. You get a full 2-pound, not a 1-pound, you get a full 2-pound roll of 030 MIG wire. You got your ground clamp. Again, it's the DENS 15. Nice strong clamp with the braided copper. You get the hose that goes from the regulator to the machine, so you don't have to buy anything else. You get a couple of contact tips and a tool, and you got your drive rollers. On one of them, it's the knurled drive rollers with the little grooves. That's for your flux core. This has 030 and 035, and it also has 045 flux core, and then you have your 030 and 035 and an 025 MIG drive rollers. You also get this adapter cable. The machine is already wired up for 220. If you want to run at 110, you plug this into that adapter cable, and then you plug this into your 110. And that's where PrimeWeld succeeds in this cable. Other brands, I'm not going to say their names because they're not worth talking about, but other brands will have the 110 already wired to the machine, and then you would plug the 110 into adapter, and you would plug this into a 220 outlet. Well, What's bad about that is you may have this plugged into a 220 outlet, and then you'll have the female end for 110. And if it's just hanging there, you or somebody else could just walk up to it and think, oh, there's a place I can plug in this extension cord. And you plug it in, guess what? You're hooked up to 220. You're gonna fry your machine. All right, don't wanna do that. And by the way, you don't have to change any of the settings inside the machine. It knows whether you're on 220 or if you're on 110. It automatically senses that, so you don't have to change anything in here. It's ready to go. Okay, you also get a little face shield. Okay, a lot of people laugh at these, but I'll tell you, hang on to these because they're actually pretty handy, because you might have a spouse, a friend, a child, that all they have to do is just hold this up to their face. Okay, it's a nice little face mask to have hanging around your shop for visitors, whatever. Okay, and it also has a chipping hammer and a brush in there with it also. On top of all this fantastic stuff, you also get this wall poster that's laminated, okay, and it's got their help number on there. And by the way, I don't know if you know, PrimeWeld has first class, legendary customer support. You can call this number. They're available 6 days a week. You can also send them an email. And you can also go to the PrimeWeld Equipment Users Facebook group that is, I can't tell you how many great people are on this Facebook group, and they will bend over backwards to help you with your settings, with some problem you have, whether it's on your welding. You can ask them for tips, guidance, whatever. Nobody's got big attitudes on there like other groups. They're fellow PrimeWeld users, and they're there to help you. Okay, they're not out there for their ego. And then you also get a 53-page user's book. And you know, it's not one of those little 4-page little deals that you get from Harbor Freight or something like that everybody just tosses in the garbage can. This is 53 pages, all English, that will explain every bit about this machine. Okay, so if you can't find it in here, call PrimeWeld. They'll help you out. Call that number, send them an email, or go on the Facebook group. There's some great people on there. So that about covers what all comes in it. Okay, you got the face mask, your book, your poster, your MIG gun, your ground clamp, your 220 to 110 adapter cable, regulator, the hose that goes from the regulator to the machine, 2-pound spool of 030 wire, your electrode holder for stick welding, and the machine. What else could you ask for? You don't need anything else to start welding today. On the front of the machine, we have 2 switches. This will switch back and forth from MIG to MMA, and it has a light on there that'll show you which one you've selected, and it has the 2T and 4T, and you push the button to switch back and forth. You got 2 knobs. The top one is your arc voltage for your MIG gun. The bottom is 2 functions. It has the inches per minute for MIG functions, and then it has the amps for stick welding. This will tell you that if you're plugged into 110 volts
you need to look at the gray rings on both knobs. And if you're plugged into 220, you're going to use the red ring on both knobs. This area here on the Mig160 flux is where the non-removable flux gun comes out. But on this model, it just tells you that the maximum voltage is 22, maximum amps is 160, and the duty cycle is 30%. All right, so if you're plugged into 110, you're going to look at the gray knobs, or the gray rings. On the MIG, voltage goes from 14 to 21. If you're plugged into 220, you look at the red ring, it goes from 14 to 24. On this one, if you're plugged into 110 and you're looking at inches per minute for your wire feed, it goes from 79 inches per minute around to 315 inches per minute. If you're plugged into 220, you look at the red ring, and again it goes from 79 all the way to 394 inches per minute. If you're stick welding, you would press this button so that the MMA light is on, and this, if you look here, this line is in yellow, so it's telling you that it wants you to look at the yellow numbers. And for the amperage for stick welding, if you're plugged into 110, again you look at the gray ring, it goes from 20 amps to 110 amps. If you're plugged into 220, you look at the red ring, but the yellow numbers, and it goes from 20 amps to 160 amps for your stick welding. Okay, at the bottom we have a vent for the fan for the cooling. This is where you would plug in your MIG gun or your spool gun, and they both have an electrical connection that needs to be plugged in right here. And this right here is where you choose, this has a little picture of your electrode. So this is where you would choose if you want electrode positive or electrode negative. With other inferior machines, you have to open up the box. You have to take a wrench and remove a nut, move a wire over. With PrimeWeld, you just use this. If you want electrode positive, which would be for doing MIG with gas, you would plug it into this one and turn it until it locks in. If you want to do flux core is always electrode negative, so you would plug this into the negative port and turn it until it locks, and now you're electrode negative for flux. If you're stick welding, your electrode holder, the red clamp, would plug into this for electrode positive, which will be 90% of your stick welding functions, and then your ground clamp will go into there. If you want to do electrode negative for less penetration, you would plug your electrode holder into this one and your ground clamp into this one. On the side of the machine, we have the access door. You lift up on this, open it up, and right up here you have a handy guide that will tell you if you're doing MIG, you want DC electrode positive, flux core, DC electrode negative, aluminum spool gun, DC electrode positive, and stick, DC electrode positive. And over here, these first three will be your three different sizes of your wire diameters, and this is if you're using gas. So this is for MIG, and it'll tell you what the settings should be, and you adjust it from there to your liking. This is if you're using 100% CO2 instead of MIG mix, same thing. Flux core, obviously there's no gas, but you jump over here and you find the thickness that you're doing. Let's say that you're doing 1/8 material. You're using 035 wire. It wants 22 volts and 276 inches per minute, and you adjust it up and down from there to your liking, of course. And this is if you're using spool gun. With the spool gun, you have to use 100% argon. You don't use the same gas that you do if you're MIG welding. You need argon, but you can use the same regulator that came with your machine. You just have to switch your tank out to the argon, and it'll tell you your various settings on that. Okay, this is where you're going to load your wire. You want your wire to go around the spool and come out of the bottom into here. Okay, and right here is where you would switch it back and forth. If you're doing MIG, you want the switch on this side, and over here it has a little picture of the spool gun. So if you're using spool gun, you flip this switch over to the spool gun. Loading the wire can't be easier. You just pull this lever down and this will pop up. Right here is your wheel, your drive wheel, and you would unscrew this knob here. And you can remove your drive roller. Okay, your drive rollers are marked on one side or the other, which side it is. And if you notice, it has a little keyway here, and that's keyed on this shaft. So when you put it on, you need to make sure that you turn it so that it goes all the way in. So you put in the wheel that you want, and you replace this knob and tighten that down. This, when you have this closed, when you have your wire going in here, you would close this and you would turn this one to adjust your tension on your wire. And it has a little gauge here that you can set. If you find some settings that you really like, maybe you might want to take a paint marker and write it down right here so that you can go straight to it. So when you change out your spools, this machine, like the 180, will use the 10-pound spools or the 2-pound spools. The Mig160 Flux will only use the 2-pound spools. It will not use the big one. And so this is really easy. You hold this one and you unscrew this knob. Okay, right here, if you're gonna use the 10-pound, you don't have to do anything in here, but this little ring right here, you would adjust that, and it has a spring back there, and that's where you would adjust the tension for this, for the spool holder. Right here, in every 10-pound spool, there's a little circle here. Make sure that when you put it on, you align that with this little nub sticking out right there. And you would just put that on there, make sure it goes all the way. And this ring and this ring should be flush. And then you would just replace this. Pull out your wire, push it into here. Make sure it goes across the groove, and it goes into this little part right here. Push it in a couple of inches, close this down, flip that up, you're ready to go. Now, if you want to load a 2-pound spool in here, it's a little different. Again, you unscrew this, take that one out, Now you have to take out this little black ring that you would use to adjust the tension. Okay, you take this out and then you pull this off. Empty the contents of this into your hand. Alright, now if you're going to use a 2-pound spool, you would put that on there. And then there's the first ring that you put on, notice it has 2 flat sides, and this has 2 flat sides. Make sure that you put that so that it fits on there. Then a spring goes on there, and then you would put this one back on like this. And the more you turn this, it compresses this spring and it adjusts the tension. When you're doing your tension on this, you don't want it so loose that when you let go, it just unwinds on itself. But you don't want it too tight to where your drive motor is straining to pull it off the spool. So make sure that you adjust this, and make sure you adjust this for the tension on your drive roller. And we'll get into that in a minute when I go to actually using this machine. But I just want to show you that. So for now, we're going to leave that off.